Welcome to another Apollo Papyrus podcast episode. I am Aaron Apollo Camp. For this episode, my interview guest is a sports videographer for ESPN, a business person, and the author of the book Metamauric. His name is Ryan Y. Givens, also known as R.Y. Givens, and my interview with Ryan will follow the teleportation sound. Ryan Y. Givens, who is known as Ryan Givens or R.Y. Givens, welcome to the Apollo Papyrus podcast.
Well, I appreciate you for having me.
Feel free to introduce yourself to our listeners because you do quite a bit of work.
All right. Well, first and foremost, my name is Ryan Givens. I go by an author name of R.Y. Givens, but I first and foremost, I've always and have always wanted, not always wanted to be, but I'm a writer. I'm an author and released my first book, and I have so many more that'll be coming out. Finally, now that I have the courage to do it. So I'm a writer. I'm a video editor as well. I've been editing video since I was a kid. Former athlete. I used to play football. I played in high school, went to college for a while playing it. I played wide receiver. And now I play tennis, so I have a good time doing that. And I'm also for my main day job, I am a sports videographer. And so what that basically means is I am one of the camera operators that's out there filming the game live for people. Usually I'll do it through ESPN or ACC Network, and I do it out of North Carolina here with UNC and Duke and NC State and a few other schools as well. So it's a pretty fun job, to be honest with you. And I also own a few businesses. And one of them is a nut milk company where we make different nut milks, pistachio, walnut, and I look up the different what actually helps to heal the body, and I try to pair with herbs that make it work like that, to make it work better for your body. So I also do that, and I know it sounds all very impressive. Only one of those helps me make a living, and that's a sports videographer job. Other than that, I have everything else though. It's a fun thing, and and I'm glad to be able to do it and have the means to be able to do it. And hopefully one day those things will also become something as well.
You've written a book called Metamauric. Without spoiling too much of the book, what is the book's genre and what is it about?
I would say it's definitely a fiction book. If I were to put it in a genre, I wouldn't want to say young adult, but it's about the best I can come up with, to be honest with you. It's really more of a novella. It's a very short book. It's about 60 something pages. And what it's about a girl who is in a place in her life where she's starting to notice that she's been given a fork in the road, where her job is getting ready to collapse. And she's starting to feel this itch to actually go after what she wants to go after. However, like most things, like most dreams, to actually take a leap is very scary. And so in the particular book, it kind of takes you through her journey of her dealing with all the emotional blowback of wanting to make this decision, making a decision, and what that's doing to her and her relationships, and making her kind of question herself. So that's mainly what the book is about. It's a fiction book that, of course, kind of like came from a little bit of probably where I was in my life as well. But Ray Bira is, like I said, a very talented fashion designer that doesn't see herself as that at times. And so to gain that courage takes some confidence and a little bit of a back and forth with yourself to actually see it, and to see the process of that emotionally is very powerful, particularly for me. So
60 pages would be kind of in the range. Of course, this depends on word count of what I would call a novel. It's probably too long to be a short story, although it would be kind of on the short end of what I would consider a novella, and the term novelette is sometimes used for books in that area of length.
That would make sense.
But the next question I have is, how do you come up with the name Metamauric with your book? How did you come up with that?
So the way that I actually like decide to name characters and name anything, I try to think of the two strongest traits of a character as far as their personality traits. And I'll look up different names that mean those traits. So with Metamauric, I ended up coming up with that by actually thinking about the word metamorphosis. And then I looked up the word auric, which means gold. Um, and so I combined the term metamorphosis and auric and turn it into metamoric, which means to take what you got and change it into gold.
Uh, of course, you were in college. You were a football player at North Carolina A&T State University, and your love for writing got awoken there. What motivated you to get into writing, and how did your love for writing get awakened in your junior year at A&T?
Uh, well, so I played football at Winston-Salem State, and then I transferred to A&T, and I graduated from there. But when I got to A&T, uh, my love for writing got awakened. It was let's see, what class was it? I was taking a random class, and it was. I think I've always been writing, but I never took it seriously. Probably until I did this one class called screenwriting history, and uh the professor during the summer class said that basically we needed to write a screenplay based on some kind of historical event by the end of the by the end of the class and stuff. And it was like 30 pages. Now, just letting you know, I tried my best to drop that class because I was like, there's no way I'm doing all that. But I after that though, I actually just ended up staying in it because it was too late to drop the class. But it was an interesting class. I ended up realizing and learning like, oh, I actually really like the process of writing. Um, and so when I wrote the first screenplay, what really kind of awoke that inside of me was when we got feedback from like some of the class and stuff like that as they read some of the screenplays. I spent like 6, 7 straight hours just editing and loving the revision process and being able to somehow take like I was able to see all these things emotionally someone deals with. I wrote it specifically around Willis McGahee, who was a football player at Miami, and he had a really bad injury in the early 2000s in the national championship game where his knee bent backwards, and um, and so I wrote just like a play around a story around what I would imagine it felt like being in there pregame and then having to go through that injury and everything. And so when I ended up seeing like, oh, I can actually put out there what it's like to go through something emotionally, that was crazy. And then to actually get these revisions and see how much I actually truly loved being able to shape a story and give it some form, it really kind of woke that inside of me that I want more of that. I want more of being able to express myself that way. And it was very different for me. I didn't realize how powerful that could be and how much I could do that through story. So I've really loved it ever since.
How long did it take you to write Metamauric, and what were the easiest and hardest parts of writing that book for you?
It didn't take me very long actually to write that book. To be honest, the hardest part was trying to make the character a girl. Because I was like, what do I know about this? And what do I know about fashion? I know absolutely nothing. Only thing I know about is going after a dream. And so the hardest part was probably doing some of the research as far as like what to look for as far as fashion things and how it would kind of relate to today. Like I said, the hardest part was centering it around a woman. The easiest part, honestly, was creating the characters. I love to create characters. I have a whole like uh worksheet I do for to create a character and make them very realistic. And the easiest part was writing the backstory. None of which is in the book, but it really does play a big part in their personality and how they kind of come out in the book. But that was probably the easiest part of writing this story was the characters. Because once I live with this philosophy that once the characters have a life, they can kind of take me on the adventure themselves. And so that was yeah, that was the easiest and the hardest part about writing it.
You published your book through your company, which is called Metamauric Entertainment. Is Metamauric Entertainment just a personal imprint for your book publishing endeavors, or does your company offer more services?
Um, it it it's both. So I with this company, I have this crazy idea to not only publish my own books on there, but also I want to give other people a chance to be able to publish their books on there. But one of the things I want to be able to do is that when someone, when we take them on as a company, I want to be able to let people keep 100% of the revenue from their physical book, the digital copy, and even the audio book. And really, even when taking it on, I want to be able to also give people a chance to, uh, you can sign up and basically just license your book to us for a while. And if you want to, and you decide no longer you want to be this, I want you to be able to feel free enough to take your book and still feel like you own the copy of it. I want to be able to do that differently with publishing. I've had some people who have been a part of publishing, and basically the people own their work for the rest of their lives. And I don't particularly like that. I've had someone try to take advantage of me that way as well. And it's not something I want to do to somebody else. And so the company eventually we want to end up doing not just publishing books, but also if the book ends up becoming something that we can do, then also, maybe we can take this book and then adapt it into a movie, which I did actually with Metamauric. I actually wrote this book, then I also adapted it myself, excuse me, into a animated short film, which I taught myself how to 3D animate. And it was really cool to be able to do that. So I want to be able to give people that chance and that opportunity. And if they decide they've outgrown us, then that's cool. Um, but that's kind of like the vision for Metamark Entertainment is not just be a publishing hub for stories that are kind of similar as far as storytelling goes and inspirational, but also give people a chance to get themselves out there, be a part of a company, be a part of a movement, and still have the freedom to choose whether they want to be here or not or something like that. So I'm kind of excited to see how we continue to make that work.
What was it like to adapt your own book for an animated screenplay?
Um, honestly, that part, so I started out writing screenplays. So the screenplay part actually made sense to me. The hard part was actually basically not taking my entire book and making it the screenplay. The process with that was very interesting, very fun. Um, at this point in time, I love to write dialogue. So the dialogue in the book started changing. So I've read lots of books on how to actually adapt a book into a screenplay, and a lot of it kind of comes down to basically what is the overall theme that I'm trying to basically portray in this book. Sometimes it comes down to what are the most important chapters in this book that helps the story move forward. Because there's a beautiful nuance with books where you can actually really take your time and let you get to know each character in the world in a really in-depth way. But, if you did that with a movie, you'd be out there for 25 hours. So one of the things which is the reason why I love video games so much, because I think they're able to kind of build that out a whole lot better. And so, but with the screenplay and adapting it, it was more about shortening what it is I'm being more concise with what it is I'm trying to say and what it is I'm trying to portray and how to get you to understand these characters through eye movement or through how their mannerisms are when someone says something. It becomes more about what you see from them as opposed to what they say. So that was probably the most challenging part, especially in the 3D animation part. But it was interesting how I was able to like, when someone says something and they roll their eyes, that said just as much as in the actual screen in the actual movie as in a book if they were to say something like, "Oh my God," and when she said that, I was annoyed by this and this and this and this. So that was kind of the fun part of being able to distinguish those two of how can I take these words and make them into an action that an audience can see and feel.
Do you use artificial intelligence as an author, and why or why not?
Um, I'm starting to learn more of it. I'm still trying to figure out how it can be of use without it taking away from my creativity. So probably in this, and I'm writing a larger science fiction novel, and one of the things I that I struggle with at times is being able to find the appropriate wording to help an audience describe a world. I know how to describe feelings. I know how to tell a story. I know how to give a dialogue, but at times when trying to describe what a room looks like or trying to describe those kinds of things, or describe like what a particular new technology looks like, I can struggle with that. I just know what it looks like inside of my head. So I gave artificial intelligence a small little shot um, with this book I've been editing by actually like, typing down what it is, how basically using it to help me give more better description to describe the world so I can put people in it. Um, I'm very, very, very cautious with it because if not, I can end up letting this thing just pretty much take over and let it be my creator. And I refuse to do that. So I can see where it can be very I can see where folks can use it for that because it's very powerful. But it takes a real discipline for me to actually write everything out that I need. And then, like I said, my first time using it was just, I mean, probably 5 or 6 months ago to really see if it could help me to better flesh out and give better word description than than me. I mean, before I used to just go on Word Hippo or Find a Thesaurus and try to find another word, and that was exhausting. It was nice to be able to type it into Chat GPT and just try to figure out different words that are synonyms for this and this and this, and it kind of just shows up for me. So I've used it on that front. I don't use it to create a story at all. That all has to come from me first. So that's kind of how I'm using AI right now.
What is it like to work as a sports videographer for ESPN and ACC network? And what sports have you done videography for?
So I've done for pretty much a lot of mainstream sports. I do it for football, basketball, men's and women's, soccer, men's and women's, lacrosse, men's and women's, gymnastics, field hockey, volleyball. I've done rowing randomly. I've also done baseball and softball, uh, and some other sport too, I'm sure. Wrestling as well. And and I actually just started working. I'm going to start working with the Carolina Hurricanes here in North Carolina as well. And so the fun thing honestly about being a sports videographer is the crowd. I was an essential employee during COVID. And so when there was no fans in the actual arena, it especially during basketball, all I'm hearing is shoes squeaking. I was like, oh, this is boring. But the crowd makes it very, very, very not boring. I'm like, oh, this is just a basketball game. But the crowd, the energy, it makes it very, very, very fun. It is a very demanding job physically at times because you got to run up and down and like got to really be prepared because it's something I didn't think about until I was doing this. When it's cold outside and like you hear like a sports announcer say it's the coldest day of all time out here on ESPN. The reason why you're able to see it because there's a camera operator out there freezing their tail off and stuff. And so I've doing that has made me be able to learn how to deal with the elements. So I'm a whole lot more super prepared for elements than I've ever been before in my life. But it's also a very fun job where I get to be a part of some really cool moments. I get to see the fun side of sports and honestly too, like I get to see the very human side of sports. Um, it's something to see players get injured right next to me and hearing them cry or hearing them be in pain. And sometimes the game is still going on. And sometimes the refs haven't noticed, they haven't stopped the game yet. And of course, at times I want to put my camera down and make sure they're okay. So that can be something there, man. And at the same time, like to hear the crowds and what they'll sometimes say to players and stuff like that. It feels like being in the middleman as a camera operator. I The funny thing about this is that I'm not really looked at as Ryan at all. I'm the camera guy. So I feel like I'm kind of invisible out there, but I feel like I also get to see people at their purest. And which has been very interesting and nice. and also fun. And I get to see it as a service because at the same time, sometimes people spent their last dollars coming out there to a game and to be able to put them on a video board or something like that, and it makes their night. That's also pretty cool too. So there's a lot of nuance with being a camera operator, but all of it comes down to it is a fun job that I can't believe I get to do and make a living off of.
In addition to Metamauric Entertainment, you also run the holistic beverage company Holism and the marketing and branding company Millennial Adulthood. How do you balance running multiple businesses, your writing endeavors, and other jobs and ventures?
I don't. Usually one seems like it's been suffering more than the other. Luckily, because I as a camera operator, I freelance. So that luckily gives me a lot of my days to myself, and I don't work nearly as a 9 to 5 job like that. Um, but millennial adulthood has not been as active for quite a few years. Um, because of the fact that I just can't do it all. Holism has taken a little bit of a backseat for right now, especially as I'm getting busier. And the only way I can now know that I can balance all of those is I have to get in a position where I can pay somebody essentially to continue on with that mission, as far as like, marketing and stuff like that. I think it for me right now, it would be it would it wouldn't be impossible, but it would be a disservice to myself and other people to even try to keep up with all of those because something is going to suffer. And I don't want to give half efforts to certain things. So, and I struggle a lot sometimes with social media stuff anyway, and like being consistent with it. So to be able to balance those things, to be honest, I'm looking at saving up enough money to be able to start to pay people to be able to take care of these things for me. Um, so right now they're taking a back seat.
How do you manage your mental health, and what is your best advice for those who are struggling with mental health problems?
It's a good question. Um, Mental health problems and struggling with all that. How do I manage my mental health? For me, I have to have a morning routine. Every morning I don't have my phone in my room. I bought an alarm clock. If I ever need to use the alarm clock. And I have a morning routine where I kind of start with a prayer and just like, I don't know what's gonna happen today, but here we are today. And I have like these things called like little daily readers that I'll read in the morning, and it's something that kind of like ground me and set me in the day, and to be okay. And I do all of that before I look at my phone or do anything like that. That is really how I take care of my mental health a lot. What I have noticed is how I start my day. A lot of times is how my day can kind of go. If it kind of starts off a little bit chaotic, then sometime throughout the day, I'm feeling just rushed and chaos, and I can't handle things. But when I start the day off a little bit calmer and a little bit more in a centered spiritual place, um, I'm a whole lot better with myself. Um, I'll usually kind of journal something out real quick and say what I'm thinking or what I'm feeling because I've noticed just from me dealing with different depression and things like that. At night is where I can struggle the most, and in the morning. And I've learned it's because that's the rawest time. It's the time where I have no filter. Nothing throughout the day has made me focus on anything else. All I can think about is the things inside of my head. So through doing these little daily readers and stuff like that, that kind of ground me, that kind of helps me to be able to start my morning off a whole lot better. Um, even if I don't start it off great that way, what I will do still is, I've learned to teach myself I can start my day over whenever. Um, if it started off crazy, I can carry those little books with me and I can read them whenever I get a moment. Uh, I also go to therapy. Thank God for that. Um, and what else do I do to take care of my mental health? Sports are a big deal. Doing something physical is huge. If I don't do that, that's part of my mental health journey as well. Um, Physical activity, I've learned helps me to process things. Um, Anger, sad, I can do stretching, I can lift weights, I can go and run around and play, and it helps me to be able to get all of those really crazy, sometimes explosive feelings out so I can actually see life right sized as opposed to, just having it all in there. Like once I release those endorphins from doing some kind of physical activity, I feel like I can think clearer. So that's another way to which I really take care of myself mentally, is through physical activity as well. And learning to call friends. And right now, learning to uh, allow friends to be there for me if I ever struggle and being open to them and honest them about my struggles. That's new because I'm learning now people actually want to be there, which is crazy because I didn't have that kind of growing up a lot. And so I'm learning right now how to actually be honest and open. And it's been working out pretty well for me so far. So, yeah,
Ryan, thank you for appearing on the Apollo Papyrus podcast. You were an interesting and fascinating guest.
I appreciate that.
It was wonderful to interview Ryan. This is Aaron Apollo Camp reminding y'all to find your writing and reading purpose. Bye for now. Copyright 2024 Aaron Apollo Camp, all rights reserved. This podcast episode is intended for the private listening of our audience. Any reuse or retransmission of this episode without the express written consent of the podcast host is prohibited, except under fair use guidelines. Royalty-free music and sound effects obtained from https://www.zapsplat.com.